Host Dr. Jack Rocco. Hi, Dr. Jack.
Hey Neil, how you doing?
Doing
Enjoying the
great.
cold?
Oh, it's starting to get cold again. I don't want this. It's 54, but tomorrow it's going to be 30 something. So
Yeah, we're
I don't
supposed to.
like it.
I think we're all getting pummeled this weekend, but it is February.
I
What are
know.
you,
We were
what are
thinking
you gonna
early
do?
spring. No.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? So, hey, I came across an article that I want to talk about today. We mentioned it a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, read this article. Let me see if I can pull it up here. American men suffer a friendship recession. Apparently, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all. But when you hear stats of the number of men who report having few, or no friends whatsoever, these numbers have been skyrocketing. That they're saying right now that the average man has 15% of men have no close friends, and some studies even show up to a third. And you got me thinking about, what do I call friends who are my friends? Do I have friends? Do Facebook friends count? Because a lot of things have transitioned into this. And I mean, I think that's a huge source of loneliness. And I think there's a lot of topics around this because, we've men need, we've talked about this before, the male bonding, um, the tribe. I think it's an important thing to have a team, a group. So what are your thoughts, Neil? What would you say? Do you have a lot of close friends? Do you have people
I'm
around
a
you?
really, after my divorce, all my friends are my clients really much. And I have a lot of acquaintances or former clients or people who come on my show. So I have people I can reach out to all the time. But my friend basis when I was married, was a couple friends, but some of them from pro wrestling, some of them from high school, some of them from college, but really, and any sports or any people I ran into in the community. But really, it was after COVID. I think the friend thing kind of changed in a lot of ways, and I think it's because of online and all these different things. So I have a lot of people who I call friends that are clients or people I work with or business partners. But at the end of the day, it's not the friend thing that we're used to dealing with,
Right.
and
When
after college, our first couple of years of work before we get married, then you get couple friends. And I don't know how that couple friend thing's working out anymore.
Yeah, well, I would agree. It's like, when's the last time you went out, you called a friend and say, "Hey, let's meet up, grab a beer and watch the game," or let's grab a sandwich and it's usually involving the game or something, with men, at least with my friends. But yeah, you go through stages. You have your high school friends, and that's often sports related. And then you go to college. You may have your college friends. I went to the military. I had my military buddies, and I think for me, I wasn't necessarily a combat soldier, but I think my military friends, I think I still consider some of my best friends. And I was speaking to one. I've been speaking to one last several days. We've been going back and forth on text message and busting each other's chops. But I think with the military guys, um, I was overseas, so there was nothing else. It's not like you could, go home. I was in Japan, so, I was in Japan. I'd go to work with the people I worked with who were also there in Japan alone. Like everybody was in Japan alone, and everybody wanted to explore and see Japan. So it was really a great opportunity to travel, and I had so many friends that I would travel with. It's like you're going to a festival this weekend. You want to go to Korea next week because we have off or something. So that was great, and I think that really, really lightens your mood, But you're right. Then you get married, or at least I did. When married, you a lot of people, if you don't stay in the same, if you don't grow up with your spouse, with the same people, if you didn't hang out with each other, with the same friends growing up, you meet in college. You've got your spouse has their friends from home. You've got your friends from home. You bring her around your friends. She's like, I don't like your friends. You go around her friends. You don't like her. So you end up developing these mutually agreed upon friendships that you have, and then you get divorced. You go through that, and poof, they're gone. You're the man. A lot of times is the untouchable. You don't, your friends' wives don't want them hanging out with you because things didn't work out. So you kind of get thrown into the swamp a little bit as far as that goes, on top of other life changes. So, it's easy to see how guys really, really struggle with that.
Exactly. But guy friend, so you think it was different in a different time, Dr. Jack, when it came to friends?
I guess I do. I don't think people were as mobile. I think people tended to stay in the same place more often. You probably had more friends together. You weren't going away to college and coming back. So I do think, or your spouse was someone within the family. I think my grandparents, they were, Italian immigrants. So, they were going to marry an Italian immigrant. So, and the friends in the Italian immigrant family were the same friends, so it seemed to be much more unified. But you're right that, nowadays, post COVID, everybody still has entered the cave and hasn't returned. And, they're on Facebook. They're on, even my uncle, my father doesn't really never got into it, but I'm amazed at how my aunts and uncles, some of my older aunts and uncles, they're in their 80s. They're on Facebook all the time, forwarding memes and all this. That was just unheard of, growing up when we were kids, we were younger.
Wow. I find this fascinating, Dr. Jack, the conversation, because you just never know in this process of friendship and where we're going here. Do you feel, I know where you're going. Do you think friends help you get through life better, having friends?
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, is a Facebook friend the same thing as a friend? You know, you feel connected to these people, but are you really? I mean, are you truly? I mean, I've got some Facebook friends or people that I met online that I don't know that I would recognize them if I saw them in person, you know?
Wow.
But
Uh,
I think the loneliness, I think men, here's one thing that I do find is interesting with, how male and female, maybe let's bring it into that, like how male and females always tend to be, on board with one another, regardless of where it is. You go to, PTA, you're raising kids, the female friendships seem, in my perspective, seem to be a little tighter or easier to come across. Um, I'm a big fan of Moby Dick. And in Moby Dick, there is a scene where he talks about, if they harpoon a male whale, if they harpoon, well, first of all, if they harpoon a female whale, all the other female whales will kind of gang up around her. They'll kind of bump her up, try and support her. They'll vocalize for her, like, almost as if crying for her. But the females will all stay around. But he said, this is Herman Melville's words. If you harpoon a male whale, all the other whales are like, "See you, dude. I'm out." They leave the guy out. So, that friendship is also, intermingled with a good deal of competition. There's one less guy we have to worry about, rivalry. So, male friendships seem to be a lot of purpose driven, not necessarily emotional driven. That, thinking about this, I'm like, yeah, I've got friends. I've got Neil. I've got Jean Paul from The Office. It's like, I consider
see,
you.
see, see. No, I consider you a friend too. I would always turn to you.
Yeah,
But see, I at one point I was told you shouldn't be friends with your clients, and I think that's BS. I think it's great that you build a relationship with your clients, that you become friends with them.
Yeah. I've said this. I mean, I've been friends with my patients a lot. In residency that didn't happen. I was in Philly. You'd go into the city and then you'd go out. But in the military, I can't tell you how many patients I had that were friends, or friends I had that were patients. I did. The guy that I told you I've been talking to the last couple of days. I did his it was his girlfriend at the time, but I did her ACL reconstruction when we were in the service.
Oh
You know,
wow.
and you know, he before I went in, he wrote all over her leg, the surgical leg, this one, Jack, don't screw this up, not this one. I mean, so It was. I thought it was still professional, but I thought it made it some fun that you're friends with these people. That it's not that big wall between one another. Um, but like I said, I do think that like a lot of male relationships are more like purpose driven. They seem to be, you have a mission. You're on a team with someone, you're paving a road, you're taking down some trees, and while you're out there, you're talking to your friend, but you become friends in that way, in that purpose. And you run into someone years later and it's like, you remember that time? Like, oh yeah, that was amazing. You still have that bond, um, but you're not going to call them on any given Sunday to go grab a beer, so
Because
it's
a lot of times they're not in the same place. I'm not gonna
right.
say I got tickets to the Cavs game. Want to go, Jack? He's like, no, well, I'm in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Or, but
You
also
know,
like, guys that are in relationships and marriage. And when I was married, I didn't have a lot. I said my marriage friends, but I wasn't going out golfing with the boys. Um, and I do think, and now I do it much more often. I've got a group of guys that, I would consider all of them good friends, but I see them once or twice a year. It's really an amazing thing. I got a group of guys that through friends of friends and what have you, they go on these golf outings twice a year in March and in October, September, October. And we just got the notification for the one in September that 72 guys are included in the group this year. So you got
wow.
72 guys that are going out to golf together. And I mean, that's amazing to me. And I'm not an avid golfer. I think it's wonderful that I'm not a great golfer. I don't really practice. I'm not horribly good, but I've got 71 golf friends and when you golf with someone, you spend 4 hours in a cart and, what are you going to talk about? So you do get to know each other, but I thought it was funny, and I think some of it I think is, almost like it's become, chauvinistic in a way to have a men's group. What are you guys going out and doing together? There's some element of that, it's almost become taboo for guys to hang out together. I think that's something you're being a sexist if you're going out with guys. But when I was working with Sono Bello, all the nurses, they were all curious. They're like, Doc, you're going golfing? Like, I didn't know you were a golfer. I'm like, yeah, I golf. He's like, you're going with all these guys. Like, what do you boys talk about? They were all interested. What do you guys talk about when you're golfing? And I'm like, I don't know. We just talk about stuff. And I couldn't really tell them what we talk about. It's like, yeah, sometimes you talk about family, guys, hey. But then a lot of, what I realized when I was down there, I'm like, okay, I realize what we talk about. Guess what we talk about when we're golfing? We
What?
talk about golf. It's very purpose driven. You know,
You
it's
got to
like,
win. If you
well,
play
yeah,
basketball,
it's
you
like,
play the basketball. The guys back in the day, it was about winning. We weren't talking, hey, John, how's the wife? No,
yeah, yeah.
I beat your ass. There you go.
Right. It's like this one, like, oh, you want to stay left on this one, but you don't want to go too far. You don't want to hit it into the swamp. It's like, oh man, I shanked that one. I need to keep my elbow straight. Hey, Jack, you're pitching you got to keep your head down. Don't bring up your head. So it's like, once again, it's back to purpose driven. So, and I think maybe that's the answer to the problem. The answer to the problem of, men have very few friends. But I think the way to counter that is to develop and have activities where you have the opportunity to be involved with men. It's not going to be the same. I don't think it's ever going to be the same relationship that women have. But I think if you're in a bowling team, a club, I'm not sure if they even have these things anymore. My father used to bowl and
They still do. I mean, I
yeah,
was in a bowling league, but it was again a couples league. So find one that's not a couples league, right? And that
yeah.
is so it's about staying the couples to then they break up, then there's no bowling team anymore. I mean, but then the sports, how many people have their season tickets that are friends and family that go? There are still, but it's soon disappearing.
Hmm.
Hey, you want to go to the football game? No, the wife's going to come. It's not going to be a guy thing. You're
Right.
going to a football game for 6 hours and I got the kids at home? I don't think so.
No, no. I was thinking the other time as well, it just kind of popped up before 2020, before the pandemic. I remember I was thinking about doing some real estate and they had these real estate, it was like meetup.com. There were like these meetup groups.
They're still
And
around,
is that
big
still
time,
around? Because I
big
guess that
time.
was one thing that I was wondering. It's like I remember I was doing it's like, commercial real estate, real estate group. And I went to a couple of these and I met some people
That is a good place. I was
but I
thinking
didn't know that that was still around because that kind of vanished for the longest time and I never went back into it.
that's where a lot of communities are building, either in the network marketing communities. You're looking also at the business communities. That's where your friends are getting together. Hey, we're hanging out, we're talking. I guess the country club, that's still where friends go, right? So it's different environments, but I don't know how much that friendship is happening.
Yeah.
I think busy people, it's hard to say how they have any time for friends. It's good you do.
But it's something that, I don't think you can neglect. I think it's something that, it goes in, we talk about men's mental health all the time, lonely men and suicide rates. And I mean, I think some of it is really sad and important to think about. Um, and I think a lot of it starts with friendship, that's just get yourself out there, find an activity, find a sport, find a church group, things like church groups seem to have petered off as well. Certain areas, but if anyone has any ideas, please feel free to reach out to us and give us some ideas online on what you're doing with your friendship.
But
Yeah,
would you think the younger group are still having lots of friends?
I don't know. They do a lot of online stuff. Well, I had a post yesterday I put on Instagram and talking about what we do. And around 10 o'clock, I'm going to bed and I check the post and I talk about the post. In the post, I say something like, all men die, not all men truly live. So let us help you get back in shape, get some of your motivation, get back in shape. We want to help you be your best self, feel healthy, feel well, not ill, but just, help you be your best self. And at the end, I say, help us to help you truly live again, And this guy wrote in the comments, he's like, I'm almost 30 and already I feel like I want to kick the bucket, And it was just like, that made me sad. It was sad that, there's these guys out there that, 30 years old and this guy's already, it's sad. So I told him, I said, reach out to us. Let's talk. I'm not going to charge you anything. Let's just have a conversation first and get together. But, I guess, between that thing last night, this article about, male friend recession, makes me sad because I think, I cherish a lot of my friendships when I was younger. And I hope my son has the same. I hope young guys have the same. I think that male bonding, that male friendship, um, if it's having a bad connotation or being socially inappropriate, I hope it continues to be, socially inappropriate, but guys do it. It's just you got to have those friendships, those male friendships that, you look a guy in the eye and I do it in the office with other guys. It's like the wife is talking, I look at the guy and, there's this unspoken male bonding that goes on that we understand that I think is very important. And you can't lose that. With testosterone level going down and everything going down and all men being bad and you'd rather be with a bear than a man, I think that's bullshit. I think men need to be together. Men need to find friendships. You can't be embarrassed by it. Whatever you're doing, find a good buddy to do it with.
All right. Very good place to find you is go to the ultimatemensmovement.com. I mean, I want to get you that website, I guess. The ultimatemensclinic.com in New Bedford, Massachusetts. Like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. But a great topic to talk about because I'll consider that. Who are my true friends?
Yeah.
And when you're in the grind at a certain time of your life, how is it? How do you go make a friend?
Yeah.
There you
I said,
go.
I can't tell, I'm in a new area. I don't know that I've got a couple people, but Do I have a good friend
You
here?
got to go to a business networking event. There
I
you
do.
go.
I got to find something.
All right.
All right, Neil. Thank you.
That
Always
was
great to
the
see
that
you.
was the best special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the ultimate men's movement, guys. Take care.